More graduates to our campus today because we would like you guys to have the opportunity to ask questions of those who not only have been where you've been, but are where you are headed. So this is a great opportunity to learn about their experiences and get a sense of how it is that you can shape your own experience here based on the life lessons that these guys are bringing to you today. We will give them a list of questions and ask that each of them answer it, just to give you some background on the lessons they've learned in general, but then we'll turn it over to you guys and then open it up and invite you to ask any questions you may have. So I'll ask them to introduce themselves, give you their name, what degree program they graduated from, how long ago they graduated, and an overview of what they've been up to since, maybe where they came from. Our moderator for the event will be Tim Clark, Neumont instructor and director of academics. Come on in. He's also a Neumont graduate, so if there's a question he would like to answer, he may share some of his own experiences as well. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay, so I'll start. My name is Zach. I'm originally from Reno. I live here now, obviously. I graduated about a year and a half ago, a little over a year and a half ago. I work at a company in Midvale as a mobile developer for iOS specifically, but I also do some full stack stuff depending on what work they need done.
I'm Ryan. I work at React Games. I graduated a year ago from the game development degree. I'm down in Midvale. I came from Las Vegas. Yeah, I currently just work on a lot of random games, lead on a couple projects there. Yeah, a couple games coming out pretty cool, or pretty soon here that you guys might want to play.
I'm Sam Fisher. I graduated 1.5 years ago, which for you guys is like an eternity. I work at inContact. I graduated from the TM degree. I work as a project manager at inContact in their sustaining engineering department, in a organization called DevOps, Development Operations. I run a few teams and I run some side projects to invest in the stability of the company's software.
I'm Aaron. I'm from Salt Lake. I've lived here my whole life. I graduated from the IS degree, and I currently work for a company called Rakuten Marketing, and I'm part of so I'm a systems admin over there. I'm also part of a global team that is working on developing a new VDI solution that we're hoping to roll out across the globe for our entire company.
All right. Cool. So we'll start out with the first question. How do our students, how can they best find a company with a culture and work experience that they'll enjoy? Any of you guys can answer. Just feel free to jump in.
Well, so first you want to figure out what kind of field you want to go into. If you want to do CS, games, server-side stuff, you have to figure out where you want to be. And then from there, actually want to find a place that you want to live. If you want to live here in Utah, California, Seattle, there's plenty of places across the states or even other countries that you can work at. But you definitely want to pick out like the environment you want to live in. And then when you actually get to a lot of interviews, of course you can do some research about the companies on like the websites and things like that. But a lot of the stuff actually, in my opinion, comes from the interviews when you actually sit down with the company and the people there and you can ask them questions and find out what it's like to work there. And it's important that you do that because in an interview, it's not just a matter of you being interviewed and seeing if they want to hire you or not. It's you seeing if you actually want to work with the people that are there. People want to interview you. You want to see if you actually want to spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, if not more, especially in CS and just in programming and stuff like that. You're going to spend a lot of time with these people inside and potentially outside of work. So if you're not enjoying who you're working with, why do you want to work there?
I would say during interviews, I always ask about deadlines, like specifically what they expect as far as deadlines go, because that's going to tell you if you'll be working 9, 10, 11-hour days. If that's okay with you, that's totally cool, but it does tell you a lot about the company's culture, especially about their projects, how hard you'll be working on them, how long you'll be working on them, stuff like that. So yeah, I would definitely ask about that kind of stuff during interviews. And ultimately, I would just talk about maybe their workspace. That gives you an insight into what kind of, how flexible they are, how creative they are, how fun they are, if they have fun at work, stuff like that. I think that's cool.
So are you suggesting that they ask to take a tour of the facility or actually go visit the company?
Yeah, I think that would be great. Honestly, if the company I'm at now, if I had taken a tour, I would have been very turned off. But I really like the people there. Hopefully they're not watching this. But I really like the people there. You know, it's an older company, so it's not as cool and hip as like a lot of these newer companies, but I really like the people and I like the work, and I like the free reign I have over some of the projects and products. So ask about all those things.
Sam, what would you look at on a company's website, or what would you look for on a company's website to try to determine whether or not you'd work for them?
So the company's website's kind of tough because they're ready for you on there. They're going to put up, you know, kind of what they want. I will tell you though, me personally, so it's different for every person, right? So you need to find the company that's right for you. But I look to see like if they have something that talks about what they do for fun. And this is a great interview question for your interviewers as well. Ask them, what was the last thing you did for fun as a company? And that will tell you a lot about what the fun element of the culture is for the company. And I'd look for that to see if it's reflected on the website as well, on the careers part. That's my thought. Another good question is ask them, why should I, well, you got to be good about this, right? You have to be tactful, because if you sound like a snob, they're not going to hire you. But try and ask them in a polite way. Ask them, what's great about your company that would make me want to work for you? You know, what are the things that would make me want to work for this company?
Aaron, do you have any advice on that? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, just really definitely looking at the website, and even taking a look at websites like Glassdoor and everything, and just seeing what actual employees are saying about the company goes a long way. It's actually be a great insight as to, because people are able to be anonymous on there, so they can say whatever they want. Well, maybe not whatever they want, but they can say how they feel about their company. That'd be a great way to also look at the type of company that it is, and how people feel about maybe the management, how they feel about their career opportunities, and the ability to grow inside the company.
Cool. So you guys all brought up interviews and questions we could ask for interviews. How about advice as to what students should do to prepare for their interviews?
So about 90% of my interviews asked simple questions about algorithms and data structures. And if you don't know the answers, you probably won't get the job, guaranteed. So definitely, if you didn't pay attention in algorithms, go back and pay attention. And if you haven't done it, pay attention, because it's real important. And then be able to answer simple questions about like SQL statements, select, joins, creates, deletes, because those will come up. They might have you do it on a whiteboard. And those are just easy things that you can get done, and they'll be excited that you know it.
For games, it's pretty simple. Have projects. Have lots and lots of projects and things that you can show, things that look awesome, and that you can point to and say, I did this, or I've tried this and found out this was fun, or this wasn't fun. Just anything that you've done, just make sure you have things to show them, because that's what they want to see. They want to see that you're really invested in it, especially in your personal time, not just schoolwork. For games, it takes a lot more than just what you learn here in school. You have to actually show that you're passionate about it and want to do things beyond what you're just doing in class.
So Ryan, did you put together a portfolio when you graduated?
I put together a pretty in-depth portfolio, and I had a lot of projects that were not only from school, but a lot of side things I'd worked on as well. There's like game jams here in Utah that you can go to, and other things like that help out a lot.
How would you format that portfolio?
Mine was actually just a website. I had a video on there that actually went through about a minute, 2 minutes, that actually had a lot of my old projects in it that I went through really quickly and just described like 10 seconds maybe what it was, and kind of showed some really cool parts to those, a couple games in there and whatnot. And then on the website I actually had an in-depth page about each one of the projects I'd done previously.
So Zach, do you feel like that would work for CS2, a website portfolio?
Yeah, absolutely. I think companies are really excited about you showing them projects you did on the side, so outside of school, outside of work. Is something you worked on, on your weekends, because it shows them that you're passionate about what you do and you like doing it for more than just a paycheck.
Sam, how would you do that for TM?
Yeah, if I could chip in here, actually, when we do our interviews at our company, projects is almost half the interview, and it doesn't matter what we're hiring you for. We'll basically ask you, what is the most significant accomplishment or challenge or project that you've done? And usually, like, workplace is the best, so like enterprise projects. When I was being interviewed for the job, every single company asked me about my different projects. In fact, they almost zoomed in completely on that. They didn't care about my GPA, frankly. They might for other degrees, but they cared a lot about, in these projects, they had me walk through them, talk with them, and talk about the different accomplishments there. So, but for anything, I would say for anyone.
How would you build a portfolio?
The best thing to
Coming out
do,
of the TM degree.
from my experience, I'd keep it actually pretty light. I wouldn't, how do you say this? A lot of people can kind of see past the BS. So I'd say the most important thing is to be able to establish specific projects you can talk to. Put them on your resume. If you're doing a cover letter, put them on your cover letter. If you have a conversation, mention them in the conversation. And focus on some of those 3 projects and be able to talk to each one. Have about 5 talking points to each one. And consider the questions they're going to ask you about the different projects. Try and foresee their questions, because they're basically going to look at, when you give your first presentation, your first 30-second presentation on your project, they're going to be say, okay, that's nice, he prepared that, now let's delve down and see what he really knows. So I would think and try and preview what questions they might ask you on those.
All right, so far we've got algorithms, we've got a portfolio, we've got cut the BS. What do you want to add, Aaron?
I would say that when you're going in to look for a job, they tell you pretty much in the job description what technology, at least in the IS field, what it is, the technologies that they're looking for you to use. So even just bringing those up on your own really shows that, one, you did your research on the job and the company themselves, but it also really puts in their mind that you know the technologies they're looking for. And don't just bring them up, but really dive into the nuances of the technology. And that would be a really great way to help them see that you're the right fit.
So, Aaron, you graduated from the IS degree, correct?
Yep.
So how would you go about creating a portfolio or some way to show the work that you've done?
There are actually a lot of really great, even in the IS field, a lot of great open source technologies to get into and projects that you can yourself contribute to. One of the most common ones is called OpenBSD, and that's a really popular technology that you can actually be a part of, and you can make changes to and be part of the community. I would say that's a really great way to get involved.
So join some open source
Join
projects?
some open source projects, really get involved in the communities. It really is a small community. It's not that hard to find somebody that knows somebody at a different company.
Good. All right, so let's move on to your transition from student life to adult, working on my own, kind of living life. What were the biggest adjustments you guys had to make moving from being a student full-time to being a full-time employee? What were those challenges and how did you face them?
I can start this one off if you want. This is probably the biggest one. This is one I think you should think of is, yes, businesses divide their, they divide the year into quarters, just like Neumont divides it into quarters, but it is ongoing. So we think about, in Neumont, I think about projects as 5-week projects or 10-week projects, Have your sprint, have your quarter, you're done, woohoo, move on. In business, it keeps on going. So start thinking, think more long-term, obviously we're still setting our different goals for week, month, year, whatever, quarter. But it's a continuous, the business doesn't shut down at the end of the quarter and then start up again. It keeps going, and you've reached your goals for quarter 1, and you keep moving on and start moving on to your goals for quarter 2, but it's all the same process for me.
I would add for CS, it's definitely ongoing because if you finish a project, I'm a lead on a couple projects, and one I finished 6 months ago, I'm fixing bugs on today because no one else knows how or wants to spend the time to do it. So it's definitely ongoing. if you know, in school, if you finish your chess project or whatever and there's bugs in it, you're not going to fix those, but in real life application, you will definitely fix those. And then I'll add, the biggest adjustment for me, honestly, was first day I went to work. I got off work around 4:30 or so, and I was driving home, and I thought, I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do because I don't have any homework to do. I literally had to figure out what to fill my time with, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was a good feeling.
Yeah.
So yeah, do some side projects or something.
A little bit more serious note here, especially this is really relevant for games, but a lot of industries like ours, you need to make sure you keep your portfolio up to date, because when those projects end, it doesn't mean the company is going to necessarily continue on after that. There might not be room for you on the team on the next project. There's definitely an issue like that you have to keep in mind in our type of industry. So you want to make sure you keep that portfolio up to date and be able to really quickly, if you need to, manage yourself for another month or two so you can find a new job or something like that if something comes up. So it's definitely something to keep in mind after you graduate, that you need to keep some reserves behind in money, as far as money-wise and just mental capacity, focus, that you have to potentially go find a new job after your project ends. So there's definitely that part of it that takes some getting used to.
And I would also add that just because you graduated doesn't mean that that's the end of learning. Neumont gives you a fantastic start and a great foundation to work off of, but there's so much technology out there that Neumont just doesn't have the time to go into. And I almost had to completely learn different technologies when I started, and to this day I'm still learning new operating systems and new ways to do things, and just keep on top of the technology and don't ever stop teaching yourself. And that would be a good way to stay on top.
All right, so we got some pretty big adjustments when it comes to work, right? It doesn't end like Neumont, right? There's no end in sight. You've got to work for the rest of your life.
It's
So
like
be
day one.
prepared
It's
for
like
it.
day one of Tim Clark's class.
And then, Zach, you said be prepared to fill your free time, right?
Yeah.
But
Can I
make it
add to
constructive.
that?
Yeah, go for it.
So one thing I learned when I was growing up, my dad always taught me to live below your means. So honestly, when you graduate, you will probably be making more money than most of your friends who are not in this industry. So that doesn't mean you're young, you can like spend a lot of money, but definitely save money for that event where you may not have a job, and overpay on your student loans by a lot, because you're gonna have your whole life to spend a lot of money and buy a lot of cool things. But if you can pay off your student loans really quick, then that's just going to be so much more awesome.
Excellent. And you're saying keep your portfolio up to date in case you need to find that next job, right? And then you were saying, let's keep learning, right? Keep learning no matter what. All right. So that touched transition from student into the work life. How about transitioning from student into real life, as in living on your own? Now you've got bills, you've got an apartment, you got a car, you got all those things that weigh you down a little bit. How do you handle that? Or what were your greatest unexpected adventures when it came to that?
So I can start with that. So I actually got married right before I graduated. So of course, when you get married, you have to make a decision to either get an apartment or buy a house. And so when we were out looking for a house, I would just say that you definitely want to, even though you may be able to buy a big fancy house, live like a college student for a couple of years. Don't go all out and buy the fanciest car, the fanciest house. Buy something that'll make it so that you can live comfortably, and then focus on getting yourself together and ready to actually be an adult, be on your own. Don't go gung-ho right off the bat and then get yourself in trouble right away.
Yeah, I totally agree with Aaron on that. And the other thing is, it's kind of, in a way, it's beneficial, because as you get the new job, get the new car, you get the new house and stuff, it kind of, all of a sudden, all these signals come to your mind and you're like, oh, I am an adult now. And what you see is, you see kind of a dividend go back into your job as you act more like, more mature, more like just, any other employee or any other person there. So that's kind of the advantage, and you know, obviously there's some different stresses that might hit you with like student loans and stuff. But I would totally agree. Pay those back as soon as you can. Live like a college student for the first 2 years and kind of set yourself up, and then decide what you want to do from there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the biggest one is make sure you get help from your friends and your family with a lot of this stuff. It's not always the easiest thing to just go out and say one day, okay, I'm gonna be an adult, I'm gonna learn how to pay all my bills all by myself. It's not something that you want to necessarily take that risk on, usually, not with money and finances like this, especially right after college. You wanna make sure you have some help and make sure you have everything in order, and everyone will be willing to help you. Everyone's gone through it, especially people you work with, all the new company, your boss, they're all gonna be willing to help you with this kind of stuff, and just ask them. It's just as simple as that.
I agree with all of them. I can't really think of something that I really struggled with. I guess taxes, you have to pay those. And don't look at your pay stub and look at how much they take from you, because it just makes you depressed every month.
It'll make you cry.
And don't ever try to figure out what you're actually making per hour
Don't.
or on
I
salary.
actually, I'm going to change my answer to that. That is the worst
Just
part.
think, man, I'm making so much more than my friends. Just think that.
Yeah.
It'll be so good. You have to pay taxes. I use like, what is it, TurboTax or something like that? I use that. And yeah, I mean, for the first month, don't be like, oh, I'm going to pay all these loans up. Save some money, because you got to save money, right? You got to save money too. So.
All right, cool, good answers. Why don't you guys take turns describing your daily experience at work? What you like and what you don't like. What's your daily routine at work?
I can start this. My day just is, it seems like nonstop, because like I mentioned, I'm part of a kind of a global team. So it's really cool to actually get to work with different offices and see how different people do things. I do a lot of conferencing with New York, and I'm just constantly trying to implement the different technologies that we have and find better ways to do things. And it helps to make friends with the people you work with, definitely. If you're in good terms with the people you work with, it makes the day go by so much faster and just better all around.
Yeah, I was going to say for the, what's your name again, Zach? For Zach's comment on fixing bugs, our department is actually, in a way, it's kind of the catch-all for customer bugs. So you never know exactly what's going to happen that day, which is sometimes it's really fun, but sometimes if something bad happens, then it's not as fun. So that's kind of the rough trade-off. There's a couple staples we have that kind of keep us on a good routine. And obviously, if you're familiar with Scrum, we do stand-ups in the morning. We usually link in with Bolivia or sometimes Ohio. And we go around and get synced for the day. We do planning once a week. After that, we've got a couple meetings to kind of bring us together on where we're at and what we're doing as well. But for the content of the day, I usually get in, look through emails, kind of set a game plan for the day, go to the stand-ups, come back and visit action items from the different stand-ups. Then usually I'll have a project going on, or I'll deal with a lot of release-related activities, figuring out how to get code to production. So we're working on that a lot right now. In the afternoon, I am in charge of the enterprise team, so I bring out the whipping boys and take care of those Neumont students. And that was a joke, by the way.
But you don't have to laugh, it's okay.
So yeah, we have fun. I usually reserve a couple hours in the afternoon to work with the interns, with the Neumont students on different projects. And after that, it's anyone's toss-up about what's going to happen that day. We monitor production, we monitor the different customers if they have bugs and stuff, so it's pretty fun.
React, we have a pretty interesting work environment, I'd like to think. I think it's, most game companies will have an interesting work environment kind of like this, but usually in the mornings we'll come in, everyone will be coming in at a different point in the day. So you might show up and be the only one there for 2 to 3 hours. People show up anytime between like 7 in the morning and sometimes 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's usually kind of random who's all there for us. But usually in the mornings you come in, you figure out what you're working on for the day, pick out the bugs that you're going to work on. For me, it's talking to clients, making sure I have all the projects updated and see what I'm going to be doing. Then usually at lunch, we all, as a large group of either 2 groups, maybe 3 groups, usually go out to lunch together and we come back. Me and a couple of my coworkers, we actually around like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, we kind of get a little bit stressed out or just kind of whatever project's just annoying us. We'll actually go in and just play some games because we have a big, huge game room. Then after that, we'll come back, finish our work, and go home at the end of the day. And then usually at the end of the day, we all jump on Destiny and start playing Destiny together. So like I was up till like 2 in the morning last night playing Destiny with my bosses. So yeah, the games are pretty different, I'd like to think.
So Ryan, Sam uses a Scrum methodology in his development.
Oh,
You've
no,
got this sporadic, crazy, people are coming in and going and it doesn't make any sense. What kind of development strategy does your company use?
Oh, we use the strategy of do it right the first time and we'll fix it later. It doesn't work, by the way, just in case you're all wondering, it doesn't work.
We've used that a couple times, but
Yeah.
it's the same result.
Yeah, most of the time that's going to be future Ryan's problem and forget about that guy. That's the attitude usually for a lot of our projects, and a lot of game companies will actually find are like that because the requirements to actually work in the game industry are a lot higher. You have to have better coding standards, just be able to understand code a lot better, and it's part of why it's such a competitive industry and why it's so difficult and why the game degree here is actually quite a bit harder. Is you're expected to be able to do things a lot better than just the average person can, for example, because you're going to be working under deadlines that are ridiculous. They're not possible. It's basically impossible deadlines, and you're not going to have an extraordinary amount of organization for a lot of those things. We try to do our best in getting organized, but it's because of the deadlines and the amount of work we're trying to do and how many things, how many tasks you're trying to manage at one time, it's just not usually feasible, but you do your best.
Okay. Zach, daily life at work?
Yeah, so when I first started at this company, it was basically waterfall methodology. So the company works, we write software for clients. So a lot of the work we get has to be billable. So whenever a project is approved, they send it your way and you work on it. That's how it was in the beginning. Right now, we've totally changed. We're all Agile. Every 2.5 weeks, we lay out what exactly we're going to get done in that sprint. So every day when I walk in, I know what tasks I can pick from for the whole sprint. I know what projects I'm going to do, what bugs I'm going to fix. I normally check emails. We do stand-ups as well. We do just like 15-minute stand-ups, catching up on what we've done, where we're at, if we're stuck on anything. So I really like being super organized. Sorry.
I'd love to be organized, but
yeah, and just knowing exactly what I'm going to do for the whole day. At the end of the day, I rarely ever leave a task in a bad state because I know that the next morning I'm going to come in at 7 or 8 o'clock, and I don't want to have to fix errors when I come in the morning. So I definitely make sure I leave it in a good state, especially comment out or comment where I am, so I know what I was doing.
This raises one other really good point. As far as going into the enterprise, you should start thinking about like gigantic teams. And obviously, I mean, you're going to be on a team probably between like 3 and 9 people, but you're going to be contributing to a code base that could be like dozens of people or hundreds of people or even thousands of people. So start thinking about, I don't really know what advice to give you to prepare for that besides be prepared for it. But you think differently and you act differently when you know you're all contributing to each other's code base and breaking each other's builds.
So are you saying, try to learn how to code better now, or what are you saying?
Yeah, pretty much. Good luck. You're all doomed.
Yeah. My best advice is learn to read other people's code while you're here. If you can learn to read someone else's code, you will be a 10 times better coder than if you could just write it yourself.
Why is that?
Because just because you could write it yourself, and technically, in your opinion, all programmers have this opinion that you could write it better. Everyone has that opinion that they could write it better and make it faster and will be done faster. But if you could read somebody else's code, that makes you so much more valuable. You can actually go back and look at other people's projects, legacy projects, for example. That's what I'm working on right now. A 5-year-old code base that I know for a fact today I could probably rewrite the entire thing in X months, but it's still going to be better for me and for the project as a whole to not rewrite the whole thing and just work on the parts that I can fix and be able to read their code and see what's wrong with it.
Yeah,
Even if it doesn't have documentation. But for the love of God, please document your code.
Oh.
There is no such thing as self-documenting code. You actually need to write comments.
Oh, I disagree with that.
There's a line. There's a line. I
There's
agree
a
with
line.
this guy,
There's a
but
line. There's a
there-
line.
Yeah.
There's some things you'll be doing and you're like, man, this is so awesome. And then you'll come back the next day and you're like, what the hell was I thinking? I have no idea what this is. So definitely expect the code to be bad. Most developers think that their code is bad or that other people's code is bad. You should expect it to be bad because it will be bad. And you should not always fix it because you don't know what you're breaking.
In the time that you guys have been out developing, have you gone back and looked at some of your old code that you wrote when you
Yeah.
first graduated? When
Yes.
you first got to that job?
Like a week ago, I was working on a feature, and it was the exact feature that the first thing I did when I was at my company. And I looked and I thought, what is this? But I totally rewrote the whole thing. It was so bad. It was terrible.
So would you give everybody the advice that, learn to read other people's code and don't be too critical about it?
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
they did the best they could at that point in time with what they knew and what they had. And, be prepared to help people become better coders by giving, critical feedback and advice, but without doing it in a mean way, right?
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't want somebody to come back and look at that code that you wrote and totally tear you up, right?
No.
Yeah. So,
And it will happen to
Oh
you.
yeah, it will.
It will happen to you.
so be open to critical feedback too as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which happens every day in Professor Halliday's class. So
Yes.
you should just enjoy it.
So why don't you guys tell me 2 or 3 skills that you learned at Neumont that were extremely valuable as soon as you got out of Neumont to be successful in your jobs?
Know your design patterns, first of all, because you will use them almost every day. And one thing I learned at Neumont was a lot of the instructors will ask you why you did something, why you designed it that way. Be prepared to defend your design choices. Because if you design something and your boss is code reviewing it and they ask you why you did that and you don't know, they're just going to walk all over you and tell you how to do it better. You should definitely be prepared to defend what you did, why you did it, and why the way you did it is better. And then you can have conversations with other developers and tell them how to fix their code and why they should do it a certain way.
But at the same time, you should be open to the fact that potentially you didn't do it the best. Even though you may feel it's the best, you can't be too in love with your code
Oh, absolutely.
because maybe somebody else knows better and you should be open to that learning opportunity, right?
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
better yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
I think one thing you'll learn here that's more important than anything else is being able to learn things on your own and not having to have someone teach it to you. Once you get out of the work environment, you're going to be given projects that you have no idea how to do, and there's just be tasks that you're like, I have no idea what this is, or how I'm going to do it, or anything, and you'll just be starting at step 0, and you have to go figure it out on your own, and being able to do that is so important, and you'll feel the fact that you're learning these things and you can actually accomplish tasks that seem impossible at the start is so important to learn for the actual industry itself.
Yes, I highly recommend a course on the Pluralsight, which Kelvin has taken, right, Kelvin? Yes, just say yes. Good man. All right. Called Learning. Oh, what is it? Help me out here, Kelvin.
He doesn't take it.
Learning Technology in the Information Age, or something like that. And it's by Dan Appleman, and it's really good because it covers a lot of different aspects that you would not think of as you learn different technology. But that's kind of what you want to do. I think one of the big benefits I came out of armed with at Neumont is I knew a lot of the different standards. I knew the PMBOK. Thanks to that Scrum course, I knew Scrum pretty darn well. Knew some of the standards of different documents of business and so on and so forth. So, when I walked into a room, I could kind of speak the same language as the people in the room. It helped a lot.
All right. Definitely the ability to educate yourself and research something that you may not know is a huge advantage. especially if they hand you a technology and say, we want you to use this, and they don't necessarily give you training on it. It's, I would say that Neumont definitely helped me to learn how to teach myself, and even, I mean, the answers may not always, somebody may not always be there to answer questions that you have, and just being able to Google things and know how to look for the answers and look at forums and different things like that was a huge help, as well as, I know that it seems like presentation after presentation here gets really old, but you would be surprised how much it helps when you do have to, you know, present something to your boss, and just like Capstone, where they ask you questions that they want to make sure that you're making the right choice and that you have to defend it. I think that even though it was stressful, it was a huge help to stand there and have to defend the choices that you make, because it happens all the time in the real world.
Just a little bit more on that. I think it's really important that, and no one's going to want to hear this, and everyone's going to say, yeah, shut up, no, it's stupid. But your communication skills, you might not learn them as well as you'll never learn them as well as you need them. You're always going to be able want to and need to be able to communicate better with other people. Neumont will help you out, but you still have to try to learn this on your own, especially while in college. It's going to be the easiest time of your life. I'm almost guaranteed the easiest time of your life to learn these communication skills. It's only going to get harder as you grow up and get older, especially as you become an adult and you have to take more responsibility for your actions. Just learn to communicate with other people, and there's going to be so many people around you right now that you don't know or you can communicate with, that these opportunities aren't going to be there in a couple of years. It's going to be your life is actually going to probably shrink with the number of people that you know. So right now is a very good opportunity to get to know a whole bunch of other people, practice your communication skills, be able to explain, talk to people, just small talk, things like that are so important for the industry itself.
So Ryan, what are the biggest communication flaws you've seen in your coworkers?
One is just not willing to talk to other people or really quiet. It's very difficult, especially as a team lead, to find out what's going on from certain people that don't want to be really open, and actually trying to communicate with them and get them to explain to me what they've been doing for the last week. And I know they've been working hard and getting their stuff done, but actually getting that information from them so that I can potentially convey that to the client is very difficult a lot of times. So that's one thing I wish we would work on a lot, is being able to describe what you've done and be able to explain why this took you this long, or how you were spending your time for the last week. That was one thing that would help, at least me as a project manager. You could probably say the same.
I totally agree with that, 100%. That's why you should watch that course by Dan Appleman.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we say it's communication, right? And it's communication covers a really broad area. And I've tried to explain this before. I don't have the perfect way, but it's almost like a mindset difference that you need to jump into. Is, you know, kind of in school, you're fed a lot of information. Neumont a little different. You have to be a little more aggressive and interactive. But once you hit the workplace, you kind of need to stop thinking about like being fed information or tasks or whatever, and you need to start thinking kind of like almost like a leader, or you know, being very responsible for your work, taking a lot of ownership, a lot of pride, a lot of gratification out of your work. And doing so means that you will look at the tasks, you will look at the risks, you'll try and figure out, okay, you know, what's my value to the company? What am I doing here? And that will lead you to start saying some of the things you need to do in discussions. Be like, okay, I think this is going to happen, or I need another task, or, you know, this effort might be bigger. And yeah, once again, I'm going to plug it again, I'm sorry, but Dan Appleman's course, Learning Technology in the Information Age, kind of brings together the business and the technology, and there's one other category, I think he calls it the communication category, and brings it together so you're getting the kind of the full picture. But that's what it's down to, is you kind of need to be in this leadership mindset walking out.
Do you get royalties from that video?
I know, huh?
I should. Gosh dang it, I should. I've written reviews on that. You know, the first time I watched it, I just about jumped out of my seat. I was like, this is it. This is what I've been missing this whole time. Everything's there. So, and then I watched a couple of his other courses, but that was the best one. So.
All right. So, Aaron, biggest flaws in communication with your coworkers?
The unwillingness to accept that your way isn't the right way is huge. It can put you back so far and makes the job so much harder that when people are willing to, you know, accept constructive criticism and take other people's opinions, it just works out better for everybody. things get done better, and it just moves everything forward in a smooth fashion. And then also being able, so not only being able to give constructive criticism, but take it as well, I would say is huge.
Zach?
I would agree with that. But really what's on my mind right now is coworkers who talk too much. There are some that just will ask about every error, or every code piece. They'll complain about the code, they'll complain about the errors. Don't do that, because this is your job and you want your coworkers to like you. Expect the code to be bad, don't complain about it, work with it, learn from it. And it's good to ask questions. It's good to ask your coworkers questions and have them educate you, but at the same time be able to dive into something yourself and go to a coworker and say, okay, I've tried this, this, and this. That didn't work. How can you help me? So don't ask too many questions, but ask questions.
It's finding a good mix between the two.
Yeah.
It's definitely like your coworkers there, and they're probably more, at least when you start, they're gonna be more experienced than you, and they'll be able to answer those questions like that for you and be able to solve a problem that might take you a week to do in a couple seconds and just give you the answer right away. But don't again go to them for everything, because you're wasting their time that they have to spend working on things as well.
So you're saying try to figure out the problem first, right? Attempt to solve it, attempt to figure it out, use your problem-solving skills, and time box yourself. Spend like 15 minutes on it or half an hour, depending on what the project is. Try your best, record what you did, your results, and then ask for help. Because then you're showing your coworkers that you're actually trying, you're actually really thinking, and then you can prove to them what you've done, and then they can help you narrow down what the actual solution would be, right? So you're not wasting their time. That's good advice. So I've asked you guys all the questions that I want to ask. Do you guys have any advice just that you're dying to get out that we haven't covered?
Dan Apple, man.
I'm sorry, what was his name again?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's open it up to questions from the audience. They can ask some questions.
So you guys go into enterprise, and then after that, you guys go to real world and working. How much different between working as an enterprise and working in a real developer?
So what's the difference between working in the enterprise projects and working as a real employee?
Your opinion actually
you-
matters.
Yeah.
You work on less bugs. You do less testing, I think. A lot of my enterprises were just, some of them maybe didn't have tons of work for you to do, or they didn't plan work for you. So they would just send you to the bug backlog, or they would send you to do some testing if their code is testable, which most of the time is not. So it's good to know that you are actually working on a product or a project that somebody will see, somebody will use, and you get to maintain it, and you can kind of do it your own way, and so it's more exciting.
Is this going to be a lot harder, or is it going to be the same?
The difficulty is going to be similar, but I think one of the big differences is you're being judged the whole time you're in an enterprise project. They're always criticizing what you're doing, and they're looking at it critically. Like they're actually thinking about how could this potentially be better? Are they actually doing a good job? Because they don't know you, they don't trust you, they didn't do an interview necessarily with you. So they don't know if you actually are a good coder. They're basically just taking Neumont's word that you are good and then kind of going with that. So once you're actually hired as an employee, they kind of have that expectations kind of gone. So they just know that you're okay, that you are going to do your work, you're actually going to do a good job, and that kind of critical inspection of every single thing that you're doing is going to kind of alleviate itself a little bit, but not completely. You're still being judged most of the time.
In code reviews.
Yes.
Yeah, for TM, I'm going to speak specifically to TM. For mine, for my enterprise project, I was with product and I was doing some of this competitive intelligence. For my actual job, I'm doing project management, and that was a lot harder than competitive intelligence. The main problem with competitive intelligence was just trying to get the right information, but with project management, there's so many different, so many more dimensions. So, and I think with the TM degree, I think you're a little, I don't know, but I get the impression it's a little broader. You can fit into a lot of different roles. So I think the biggest thing is moving from your enterprise, realize that you could be in a very different environment than your enterprise. And so try and look at the business model of that enterprise, see what matters, how they interact, what drives the different departments, what drives the people, and what drives the business overall. That's what I'd say.
Going with what Ryan said, I actually want to touch base on that. What would be your judgment as far as when you're enterprising with a company, sometimes the company doesn't treat the interns very well, and so you don't really know what it's like to work there because, I mean, you're an intern and some companies don't really, like you said, they don't trust you or whatever the case is, so you might get the cold shoulder sometimes. So what would your opinion be as far as like interning with them and then basing your judgment on whether you actually want to work for that company?
Well, when you're interning with these companies, I feel like you have a deep insight. You actually get to be there for 4 hours and see them interact with each other. You can't necessarily I wouldn't judge it necessarily off the way they treat you, but look at the way they treat each other. Because I feel like that relationship between employees is completely different between the relationship between an intern and an employee. So I do feel like that changes drastically. But just because I say that doesn't mean you can't go interact with those people. Just feel like you can actually go talk to those actual employees. They're still people. I mean, granted they're coworkers, they're whatever, but they're still people. Everyone's people, especially in interviews. That's one big thing that everyone I think gets that little opinion in their head that if I go to an interview, they're judging me and I need to be really formal, everything has to be perfect. But I mean, that's true to a point, but they're still people. I bet you guys have all done interviews at this point, right? You're after college, all of you done interviews on other people. So this is we're the people that are going to be potentially interviewing to see if you're going to be working at our companies. And we're still people. We don't want you to come in there. Like the one, I had a person come in that did an interview, full suit and tie, everything, to a game company, and here we sit in our Hawaii shorts and sandals in the middle of summer, and it felt like it made me feel uncomfortable because he was so dressed up and so out of place that it just immediately had a disconnect between the interview and what was actually going. It made me emotionally uncomfortable. So just remember that the other people you're working with are actual people that you can talk to and have lives and enjoy things and do fun things with.
Yeah, going back to what he said about enterprise, you are there for 4 hours, but at the same time, you're only there for 4 hours. And you start at 1. So some days by the time is it 1? Is it 1?
Yeah, it's
okay.
1. Yeah.
Some days when I at 1 o'clock, I'm done. I'm over. It's like, okay, this bug, forget this, So the last thing I want is an intern coming into a development team that they're not a part of full time, asking me questions about this, that, and the other thing. I definitely try not to be cold. You should definitely they should welcome you a little bit, but do recognize that you're not a part of the development team full time, and you may be hitting them on a bad day where they just don't want to baby someone. And honestly, when you do go to enterprise, sometimes you have to be babied because you don't know anything. So
this one's for Ryan. So I'm here on LinkedIn, and it says that you have a couple, projects. You're the lead engineer. Can you tell me what it's like to be a lead engineer and how to I know that you're over there managing all these smaller teams of people working on I see one of your projects was Snake, which is unreleased or there's no information on it. But what is it like?
So it really depends on the project. At least for games, this is again a lot of stuff I'm talking about is a lot of game related, and a lot of the other industries will be significantly different. But at least for games, being a project lead is pretty difficult. You have to not only be aware of what your whole team is working on and be able to determine what their next task needs to be and prioritize tasks rather quickly, especially because you don't know necessarily when they're going to be done. Games has a lot of mysterious parts to it that aren't as, I guess, you can't set deadlines the same way you can in a lot of other industries, just because of how nebulous a lot of things are. But so as a lead, you're not only responsible for whatever your team's working on, potentially talking to clients, as well as getting all of your own work done at the same time. So you have to kind of manage all of those things and balance them out and figure out not only what is this person going to be good at, because you're going to have larger teams where you're going to have artists, designers, and programmers. And when you have something like that, you're not only communicating potentially with just the leads, there's a lot of different communication problems that you'll run into. So there's a lot of difficulties that you'll have when you're in something like that. But if you can manage all of those and still get your work done, you're going to do really well in the industry.
So a while ago, someone mentioned having about 5 talking points per project. What kind of specific things would come into that category?
Yeah, I'd probably say, so you've got your introductory sentence, right? And usually that will include title of the project and basically what the result was, generally in like percentage or numbers or something that business people can really be like, oh yeah, I get that, numbers, yum. What you'll probably want to do is you'll probably want to talk about, think about what went wrong and have some sort of explanation there of what you did to make it right. And don't go the route, nothing went wrong, and don't go the route, this went wrong, and that was too bad, and don't go the route, this went wrong, and poof, we fixed it magically. They want to go through what was your thought process, how did you address it. It's okay that things go wrong. I mean, statistically, like 70% of the projects, and definitely like 70% of even Scrum, for example, there was a statistic that went out that 70% of Scrum implementations do not reach their full potential. So, I mean, they're ready for things to go, at least they should be. They should be ready for things to go wrong. But what did you learn from it? How did you approach it? How did you mitigate? You know, especially with customers involved. Think about that. Be prepared to talk a little bit about the size of the team, interactions with the team, and different things you did personally. Everything should tie back to something that you did personally.
I would add to that, use that as a if this was a project you're really excited about, you could use that as a platform to talk about what in the project was specifically really exciting, what you're really passionate about. I think companies love hearing what you're passionate about because it shows that you're actually a person and you're breathing and you're excited about what you do.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good.
You can probably take maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
Okay.
What's something you wish coming into the workplace, you wish you had paid more attention to in school or done while you were in school? So like as a side project or pay attention more in class? You're kind of surprised by it.
I would say, at least this is speaking from the IS perspective, don't just focus on the technologies they teach you. I mean, if, like, for example, when between quarters, you know, spend a couple days, just sit down and learn a new technology. Because there's only so many technologies they can teach you, but that's just a small percentage of what's really out there. So I would say, while you're in school and have nothing but time, learn new technologies that Neumont doesn't have time to teach you.
The one I'd go with is definitely writing and proposals and all the things that go along with that part of the leadership category. I know I didn't pay enough attention to those and I'm not nearly as good as I need to be for a lot of the things I'm doing as far as the writing skills go, and a lot of the being able to figure out a technical problem I can usually do. Like logically, I can figure out what's going to be required to actually program this out and create whatever application or project that we're working on. But being able to then take that information and translate it into something that a normal person can understand and feel comfortable with and understand, accepting why this is going to take me 6 weeks to accomplish, is something that I found very difficult and was completely unprepared for. I've had to do it multiple times now, and it's not been easier yet. As well as the other one is probably setting deadlines is the most difficult thing ever, because everyone's going to want to know when you're going to be done. And it's very difficult to judge a lot of those things without more experience, I feel. What did you say?
Yeah, setting deadlines.
Time management.
For me personally, data science as well. I'm just going to throw that out. Looking back, personally, I would have focused a lot on data science. I was going in that direction, but I would have pursued it even more.
So kind of along that note, what are some of the technologies that were new to you that Neumont didn't have time to teach you that you have ended up using every day?
Using every day.
The entire platform, for crying out loud. Like, all of our stuff is proprietary. We were building stuff. inContact was kind of, you know, they were a little bit before their time. So they were building stuff for efficiency before there was like products off the shelf that could do these kinds of things. Now it's kind of a balance. Sometimes we can get something off the shelf. Sometimes we still use our own internal tool, but you're going to run into this. I guarantee you're going to run into tools that have been built just within that company. I guarantee you're probably going to run into different production. Obviously, the code base is going to be unique to that company, and you've got to be completely prepared for that because from almost tip to top, I was jumping into a completely new world with new acronyms and definitely new technology there.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I've worked with more alpha and beta software than I will ever want to deal with again in my life, and I've only been there for a year. And every single project I've worked on has used some type of alpha software or beta software that's not even released yet and is constantly changing. And dealing with that kind of thing is very, very difficult, especially because you don't know when it's going to change, how it's going to change, and you still have to figure out how it works every single time it does.
And I would say, look at the job requirements. If it's so for example, if it's a mobile developer position for iOS or whatever, or Android, just Google what third-party libraries people are writing for those platforms. That way, come day one or day two or whatever it is, when somebody says, okay, we've got this problem, we need to solve it, you say, oh, I know this guy that writes this third-party, extension or whatever. Why don't we use that? Because we use third-party stuff all the time. Because one, we don't want to write it ourselves, and two, it helps us a lot.
Which usually is better tested than your code.
Yes, it is. It's normally better tested than your code.
All right.
Well, we do need to wrap up. Many people have class. We do need to free up this classroom. So thanks, guys, so much.
Thank you.